Hello, Rigo. We had planned to talk a lot during the Olympic Games, but unfortunately we were stopped by formalities. So we only had a couple of recordings before we had to stop. But now you are free to speak, and we can communicate. And first of all, I must congratulate you and the team with the very successful regatta for the Norwegians. I think we can say that.
Yeah,
Um,
thanks.
yeah, but then tell me about the regatta as such, how you see it. It was quite difficult conditions, I think, and quite changeable.
Yeah, I mean, conditions are always, let's say, challenging, depending on how you want to use conditions to explain certain results. That's one of the frustrating things about wind and sailing and stuff like that. It's about finding the best route. Everybody starts, and everybody has to deal with the conditions, and some do that better than others. And you need a lot of skill to make that happen. So yeah, this regatta was in that sense no other than any other regatta that people sail, but because it's an Olympic Games, we pay quite a bit more of attention to it. This regatta was a little bit specific, of course, because of being in Japan and in that specific bay in Enoshima. Um, and the specificity normally leads to, let's say, a long path of preparation. And I think an Olympics is always special because it's the let's say the end point of a campaign, where most countries spend a lot of time and trying to develop a good insight of what is so specific of this area, and then by the end of the period closer to the Olympics, they come out with road books, so-called guides that tell you, okay, if the wind is in that direction and you're sailing that course, this and this can happen. Well, of course, the Norwegian sailing team has done a bit of the same. We've tried to gather all our experiences. We had the support of a very good meteorologist, Eric Holden, who, together with all the experiences of the coaches and the sailors, but also from the web, we've developed not so much a road book, but more of a strategy guide that is less prescribing on what the fastest route actually is, but more of a guide in the sense of, okay, if you see that and that and that, this is very likable to happen. And we started, like I said, this process already a long time ago. So I think in that sense, the Norwegian sailing team, if it comes to the conditions, we were pretty prepared. We haven't analyzed yet whether the strategy guide was 100% correct or not, but we know that every forecast that we had at the last minute to go out on the water was about 100% right. And that in itself is already quite a performance for the amount of energy and time that we have put in. So yeah, on strategy and winds and stuff like that, we had a pretty good preparation.
Was it a well-organized regatta?
Well, an Olympics is always an over-organized regatta compared to World Championships. There's much more attention to details. We also call it the circus of rules. Rules to get to the Olympics, rules to get from A to B, but even rules to get boats on site. Everything is more rules, more complex, etc., etc. The main reason for all these rules is to create a level playing ground. And some people try to, of course, take advantage of these things, and other people don't. I think also there, it's something that you need to sort of be prepared for and have your stuff set up before, all the things are actually happening. So, and I think in the end, most of us were sort of familiar, well, not familiar, but sort of very aware of what was going to happen in that sense.
Mm. Your goal before the regatta was Norwegian medal and 2 top 5 results.
Yeah,
you're pretty close. I mean, 1 medal and a 7th and an 8th. It's really pretty close. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's when I put down that 2 times top 5 and the medal, it was a bit of a blind guess. It was also based on what the team felt was possible at that time, and I'm talking was it mid 2017, early 2017. So that's already a long time ago, but we kept on par during those years. So when you then get closer to that event, and the racing starts, and you see how basically at one point we had almost 4 disciplines inside a medal race, and still a shot at it happening, you get very excited, and at least I did, and ending up then with a 7 and an 8, but also the 11 from Anders, who was so really close to making that medal race. I think we can say that we are pretty satisfied with that.
Yes, and when you talk about the medal and the 2 top 5, is it difficult to say that these were the 3 teams that actually succeeded?
Yeah, well, I mean, apart from the Nakra and Endre, we didn't have, let's say, really specified who was going to do what. I mean, each sailor has his story and his difficulties specific to him in his class with his own demons and angels. So it was difficult to say, okay, these are the ones who are going to do it. But one of these identified people did deliver, and I'm really proud of the fact that this team, with all 8 of them, have performed the way it did, and Herman deserves all the credit. But in that sense, the performance of Endre and Anders and Nicholas and Martina has also been according to their development and stuff like that. We've also said, okay, it's about personal bests, and I think Endre can say that he was pretty close to a personal best, maybe not in numbers, but definitely in what we expected him to learn during that event, especially in the perspective to Marseille in 2024. And Line also kept learning and kept developing during that series. So you could call that a personal best at the regatta like that. Herman, no doubt. Anders had a lot of issues with finding the right selection, the right equipment. And is if you look at the races, his speed and his upwind speed and downwind speed in all conditions was up there. But then other issues come up. So everybody has worked as hard as they could and performed as hard as they could. And I think that's what it's all about, to create an environment where performance can be delivered. And then you have to wait and see how the rest of the world is doing, to see where it ends up in a number.
Can we be a bit more specific about the various boats? Let's start with the Nakra. They came second to last, and of course I haven't spoken to them yet, but I think they're probably quite disappointed by that. And did the condition with Martine, that she had been hurt, did that also hurt their performance, you think?
Yeah, big time. Big time. And we've always said, are we on par, or what is plan A, and stuff like that. There were basically 2 things that happened in that campaign at a very unfortunate timing, and that was an operation that Martina's nose cavities that took more time to recover from than we expected. And then as soon as she was recovered from that, or hardly recovered from that, the drop in the water and the cut in her leg became a big issue. And that has brought us quite far away from where we wanted to be at the games. And then all sorts of problems start from there, in the sense that, okay, your sailing skills, your automated pilot, your decision making, the testing of the equipment, and performance, race performance, race decision making, those things were all hurt because of that. And one of the big things in a NACRA is boat speed. And boat speed in an NACRA comes a lot from foils and sail choice and stuff like that. And even though we managed to get quite a bit of good handling in the straight in place by the time the Olympics started, during racing and the speed that the equipment finally could give away wasn't good enough. To say different, they were the slowest in the fleet. Well, apart from the Tunisians, but they were quite slow, basically because we didn't have time to train with others while selecting the right equipment. And while that we didn't have that time because Martina was basically not fit to sail. So then you come from one problem in another, and if there's one class where boat speed is sort of final or very decisive, it's in an NACRA.
They're part of a very young team, all preparing basically for 2024, except Anders, who unfortunately sails in the Finn class, which is eliminated. But all the other teams, they are now, this was their first Olympic Games, and they're preparing for 2024. From that perspective, the regatta was still important for the NACRA team, for Nicholas and Martin.
Yeah. I mean, that's always been a part of the philosophy that we've had. Is there's a selection system that is basically in place for putting people under pressure to go to the Olympic Games, and expect them to do well during those games, close to medal racing, the goal of 2 times top 5 and a medal. These people have been identified pretty early. And then there is also, of course, the perspective for the next campaign, where we basically said, okay, if a team has just enough level and qualified the nation, he must commit to another campaign so that it's worthwhile sending him to the games. And Martina and Nicholas qualifying late and already committing to a next campaign made it possible to send them there, basically in the same level as Endre, where they're going to the games is basically ticking off boxes so that they have that experience under their skill and learn as much as they can from that in order to set them up better for the next campaign to 2024.
Right. Talking about Endre Funnemark, I think his performance was perhaps better than what had been expected, and particularly in a few races where he was really at the top, a second, from which he was disqualified, unfortunately. But then he had also 2 other races within the top 10, and it proved that he had good speed. And I understand from experts that he has good technical skills.
Well, let's put it like this: Endre was a young stallion that needed to be broken, and I think he still needs that. But with a young stallion who is coachable and willing to learn, he performed exactly as he's supposed to do, doing dumb things and doing very smart things on equipment that was half familiar and half known. So there was a nice mix of good things and bad things. When I finally came to him in Scheveningen and talked with him and Aaron and His coach. We had a long discussion on what to expect and for the games, and we also said, okay, what if you become last? Will you then stop with NACRA with R6 sailing? And so we had a very, let's say, intense discussion. But in the end, we all three agreed that this was more or less the level where he was supposed to end. So, and he did it in a fashion that that belonged to his level, an upcoming young windsurfer, who can hopefully take all this experience and the impression that he made in the international scene into his next campaign, and hopefully can work it out with IQ foil for 2024. So yeah, that's always good. The young bright kid doing this brilliant things because he's no fear and no problems. Doing sometimes really good and sometimes really dumb.
Right. Anders has been very promising in the Finn for quite a few seasons, and perhaps we had hoped that he would be in the medal race or even high up in the medal race. He has not had a very good season so far, but apparently his equipment was okay, and he was all fired up to go in Japan. But I understand that he had bad cramps on account of the hot climate.
Yeah.
Does that explain his performance?
Let's put it like this. It's absolutely a part of it. If you look how many points he has lost, basically during the races where the cramp appeared, yes, I think that definitely held him out of the medal races. And also the consequence afterwards of having to spend quite a lot more attention to not getting cramped, getting rid of the muscle damage afterwards, has led to some poor decision making. And like if your equipment is perfect, and your technique is perfect, but you forget to oversee, or you do not oversee at that point for whatever reason, why you should not split from a good position or sail the numbers in a different way because you're so distracted on other areas. That's a reason, but we still need to identify in a deeper manner how that what exactly could have been done better then.
Unfortunately, Finn is out of the Olympic program for 2024.
Yep.
And in his weight class, there doesn't seem to be an alternative within the Olympic classes. So he has to do something else. What do you recommend as his head coach that he can do from now on?
Well, I mean, it's not that I'm a head coach who can recommend things. I mean, I think Anders. I mean, he's first of all he's an excellent sailor. I think he's a better sailor than he believes. And one of the things that basically should happen with this whole team, and not only for Anders, is to start, apart from the Olympic campaign, start sailing different disciplines that support your sailing. And let's not forget the big ones are not just sailing their Olympic games. They're sailing SailGP, they're sailing foilers, they're sailing big boats, they're sailing Star, and stuff like that. So I think for all of them in the upcoming campaign, they need to start sailing different disciplines alongside their Olympic campaign, if they can, with all the, let's say, social economic issues like earning money and finishing up studies. Anders could sail Star. There's a lot of other classes in the Olympic circuit. Single-handed going to be super difficult. I think he can also still lose quite a bit of weight and consider a NACRA, but that's pure on a physical opportunity. We haven't really discussed it where we want to go with him or where he wants to go. We just let this sink in and see what comes up in the future.
Okay, let us look at the ILCA classes, the ILCA 6, the laser radial. Line came from a third place in the last World Championship in 2020, and but she's not had a very good season this year. How was her approach, and how did you think that she succeeded in this regatta?
Well, first of all, she succeeded awesome, like really up there, and she at one point played for the medals, even had the yellow bib on. So that is of course awesome, and nothing but respect for that. Line, I mean, there's in the process of becoming, let's say, a multiple winner or a multiple medalist, and there's always the jump of not winning anything, then getting closer into the top fives, the top tens, and then all of a sudden you win a regatta, or you get a third on the world championship, and that is just a phase in the development of a sailor, and some sailors have big problems from winning a championship or being a medalist in world championship, then continue on developing towards becoming a serial medalist, and then a good contender for an Olympic medal. That's where Line is, and again, she, just like Endre, performed according to that, and in my book even better than what I expected in that perspective of her development as a multiple medalist, which she absolutely can be. So yeah, that's still an interesting way for her to go. And the bad season, I don't think it was a bad season. It was a season in which she invested a lot into dealing with strengths and weaknesses, and all respect for her and her coach to specifically take that extra year to work, especially with some light air issues that she wanted to improve on after a world championship in Melbourne.
Was it difficult for her to be leading the regatta after 6 races?
I don't think it was difficult. It was exciting, and that is maybe one of the situations that you need to learn to deal with, and learn to deal with during that maturity that you need to get as a serial medalist. So yeah, I guess he was nervous, but that's a matter of the game that you're playing, and she did it great.
Yeah. The 49er FX girls, Helene and Marie, they were of course perhaps a favored Norwegian team before the Olympics, having had such good results in European championships, pre-Olympics, World Championships, everything. They had a hard start to the regatta, but of course their second half was brilliant, and had they had similar results in the first part, they would have been gold medal candidates. What happened in the beginning?
Well, in the beginning, they especially the first day, if you look at the footage, 3 times they got bad from the starting line, and that on top of let's say having conditions in which there are big differences in wind speed and big waves, the physique wasn't really favoring their possibility of getting enough power to get through the lulls, and still be able to depower with a lot of weight during the heavy puffs. That was specifically for that day. But if you forget about that and just look on how they started and then sailed through the fleet, in the end it was the first day, maybe the first day jitters, to have, let's say, better starts, and then sail a similar race with a similar boat speed, they would have had a completely different series. So I think the conditions plus the the starts that weren't up to par in the first day, were the big issue on that performance.
What did they learn? Were they geared up enough before the start, or were they too nervous? What do you think?
Again, we haven't analyzed that in too deep. We were planning to have a technical debrief, plus of course a little bit of socializing afterwards on the sailing performance, and there we have to wait for it in order to accept that question. It can be two things. You can be too excited and start bad. You can be too little excited and start bad. So you tell me. I don't know. We have to work it out.
Okay, but then to the real glory story of these games, Herman Thomasgaard, who of course has been young and promising since he was an optimist sailor, too young to actually compete in Norway and having to go to Sweden to seek a competition.
Yeah.
Since then he's been the wonder boy. Now he's grown up and he's really proved that he can be with the best.
Well, I mean, I'm not sure how much the people in Norway understand on let's say being a wonder boy and being let's say very in doubt on all sorts of things. Like I said, you make a plan A, and I think about 3 months ago, Herman and Anton and me were in a place where we were actually very much scratching behind our backs on how we're gonna have to deal with Herman's breathing problems, and we've with the help of Olympiatoppen we've raised heaven and hell to find out what was going on and how to deal with it, and with a lot of support, partially on the physical part, but also on the coaching and mental part. We've been able to sort of give Herman a place in which he was able to control the breathing, but also have, let's say, enough mental flexibility or freedom or whatsoever to pull off what he did. And if then the start of the series goes well, then the confidence builds, and then it goes from one another, and that's again not a, let's say, a really unfamiliar story. I mean, there's been lots of story of people who had big setbacks just before the regatta, and we're still managing to get a golden result or a medal result, despite or maybe even because of it. Well, this is where we are. I'm really proud of the guy for several reasons.
You're no doubt going to have a briefing with the teams and with everybody after these games, but it is a fact that your contract is expiring after these Olympic Games, and there is no secret that you would have liked to continue with the Norwegian sailing team. Do you wish to say something about that?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's not just expiring. I've been since 2019 when we came back from the test event. I've been in a constant discussion with the management of the federation to make clear and ask for clarity on the long-term strategy for Norwegian sailing and Norwegian top sailing, and some things happened in between. First of all, in just before the Worlds in Auckland, all of a sudden there is a job vacancy put out for a sport director, and that is then withdrawn. That was in November 2019. Okay, that's then sort of uncommented, continues. Still no real feedback on what is lacking in my work. Then we go COVID, and where I and my staff basically saw an opportunity to start building the youth groups for 2024. I was being put on furlough for 4 months, which created, of course, a big lack of safety inside the Olympic team, but also, okay, what's going on? It's an opportunity for the youth. And then after the furlough, I'm being asked back to continue the job and make in May there's another job job vacancy being put out, and it's clear that there is a form of management inside the federation that one part says, okay, you've done a brilliant job, you've done a great job, you professionalized the toppidrett in sailing, but we're gonna let you go anyway. And I find it hard to understand, and at least it's not being told to me, where my, let's say, weaknesses were, apart from talking Norwegian. So that is a situation that is not only exclusive to sailing, it's not only exclusive to Norway. It happens in quite a few federations and sporting institutes, where performance isn't automatic, or delivering performance is not automatically a guarantee for continuation or long-term success. So it's a systematic issue, I think, in sports, where other aspects are apparently more powerful than performance and having a department that functions. As far as I understand management in sports and also management in companies, is that if you have a company with several departments, and you try to manage those departments, you start reorganizing departments that are not doing well. And in this case, I was told that my department was running well, inside budget, inside goals and stuff like that. But apparently either it wasn't good enough or something else is going on, and I leave that to the viewer and the listener and the members of the federation to find out what's going on there, because I don't know.
Okay, well, I'm sure that you will have a chance to discuss this further with the Norwegian Federation, but although the decision has been made, what are your plans?
Well, first of all, I'm going to sort of enjoy my family life a little bit, because that has been on a very low level lately. Like the other federations are also in a situation where they are having to review how they have been approaching things and how the performance wasn't as good as they wished for, and maybe something comes up there. I'm also considering to take up some freelance coaching. That's always a very thankful situation to be trusted by a team or by a sailor to help them reach their dreams. And in the meantime, we'll see. And it's a small world, so it's open for now.
Right. I'm not saying a final goodbye to you, Rigo. We've had pretty good contact, I think, and fruitful communication. So it's not over by this, but I want to thank you for what is obvious. You have made a great Olympic team, and the results speak for itself. And thank you very much.
Thank you for that, and enjoyed working with you too, mate.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Sweet.
That was good.
Let's see what the world says, mate.
Well, I think it was good. I'm going to talk to Ole Petter today and have his evaluation.
His evaluation.
His evaluation.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Not of you, but of the Olympic racing.
Yeah.
So
you'll say it was perfect.
Hmm?
You'll say it was perfect.
He will say it was perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it was pretty good. So, but I will talk to him. So this, of course, is being publicized as a podcast tomorrow morning. I'm writing a sort of a comprehensive article for the magazine, which comes out in early September. So I'm sort of collecting much information. This, and I think this interview is going to contribute also to that. So again, Rigo, I thank you very much. We'll meet again, and we'll certainly keep in touch.
Yeah, thank you, Mikkel. Have a good one. Take care. Bye.